mass casualty incident, we participated as patients, and we helped EMS students and nursing students learn how to react in an emergency situation. So we got like moulaged, and all were assigned injuries, and they were then treating us and carrying us on ambulances, and just overall practicing what they would do in that kind of situation.
We had learned earlier in this semester the sympathetic nervous system and the endocrine system's effect on the heart. So we were able to go through that again and brush up on that and then relate that to our experience.
I learned a lot more of how your body reacts in a stressful situation, as well as what EMS personnel and nursing students would do in that situation. I definitely learned a lot.
So I wrote about the Trail of Tears, which was the name given to the trails that the indigenous people took on their way to Oklahoma from their territories, which was the reason they had to take the trails was because of the Indian Removal Act. They were pushed out of their homes. Many people died along the trails. Over a quarter of the indigenous people had died. There was 1,000 Cherokee that were able to make it out into the North Carolina mountains, and they still live there today.
So my project's about prison reform, and it focuses on a model demonstrated by Norway, which is called restorative justice. And that basically it means that we focus on rehabilitation of prisoners instead of revenge, which is what the U.S. focuses on right now. It's called retributive justice. And so when we switch our thinking to restorative justice, it helps us to lower recidivism rates and then ends up saving the taxpayers money in the end. So this model right here is about what the average United States prison looks like. It's based on the prison in Reno County. This one's a Norway prison. It's based on Holden Prison, which is their main prison on the country of Norway. And then this is mine. It combines both to be effective with our system and with Norway's, because if we just use Norway's system, it really wouldn't work for our system. So if we combine the two, it can offer both conservatives and liberals a chance to come together and to actually create a prison that would work.
This particular one is on hydrops fetalis, which is a disorder of in utero where the baby has too much fluid in at least 2 extra compartments. It is caused either by an RH incompatibility or some other issue, which could be structural or chromosomal or an infection, or sometimes they just don't know. In our case, we had the just don't know kind. But we were very, very lucky because we had a good result. My son's 15 now, but this is a very dangerous issue that is not being researched. And so doing this project, I really got to dig more into our own medical history and see what could have happened differently.
The project that I did that we have here today is a survey about how older people view blood pressure. So the survey had questions that they could answer regarding, are they educated about blood pressure, and what did they do to manage their blood pressure. I learned that most aging adults do not know how to manage their blood pressure, and as a nursing student, health education is going to be one of the most important parts of my job.
My project is about the pH curves of monoprotic, diprotic, and triprotic acids. Monoprotic acids are things like nitric acid, which only contain 1 hydrogen atom. Diprotic, like sulfuric acid, have 2, and phosphoric acid has 3, so it's a triprotic acid. To graph these pH curves, you need to perform a titration, which means you will be dropping small amounts of base into a flask of acid and monitoring the pH using something like a pH probe listed down here, hooked up to a LabQuest computer, which monitors it, and it can be transferred over to an Excel sheet and therefore put into a graph. Doing this sort of thing is a very tedious process because if you get the data wrong, you could miss the most crucial point when there's a sharp increase in the pH in the middle, which is the equivalence point where the pH is about 7. These pHs will start down at a acidic pH for a while, do a sharp increase, and then plateau again when they become basic at around a pH of 7. And when you're using an indicator such as phenolphthalein, it will be transparent up until the equivalence point where it reaches a light pink color, and then when it plateaus out again into basic, it will turn a bright magenta, as shown down here in a picture of me in the process of titrating. Now, my sulfuric acid actually had a human error in it, probably due to my imprecision with how much base I added at a time, because you have to go drop by drop when you get closer to the equivalence point. To fix this error, me and my professor have decided that it would have been a better option to use a different diprotic acid, such as carbonic acid. And for my upcoming project this semester is a continuation of this, where I use a drop counter, which tells the volume of the drops every single time they fall in. And it's an automated process. Everything is automatically graphed and can be sent to an Excel sheet, and therefore the graphs are more accurate. So I'm hoping for more precise results this semester with my upcoming project. So thank you.
It's kind of like why children should wear some sunglasses, and a lot of it has to do with like UV light and how it kind of affects the eye, and kind of certain dangers to the eye. I learned a lot about UV light and kind of what all it can affect. Like I didn't really know that eyes could get sunburnt, which kind of makes sense now that I was looking into it.
I did 2 artistic representations of psychology, abnormal psychology, and then this was world history. This one was supposed to be kind of my own view of a World War II propaganda poster. I wanted to include old horsepower with the new horsepower, just intertwining them, have Uncle Sam there, so that's all fun. And then that one was an old honors project that was for abnormal psychology. I wanted to intertwine the how constricting mental disorders can be, how they can make you feel like you're lost and there's no hope for the future. But in fact, when learning about mental disorders and making them more acceptable in modern society, that lifts the future up. So you've got the future in your hands, hopefully, where future disorders are either treatable, preventable, or are more accepted.
My project was for Chemistry 1. I went to Lenore City Middle School and taught 6th graders about acids and bases. I added like 2 scoops of citric acid to a cup and 2 scoops of sodium carbonate to another cup before I had gone into the classroom, and I had introduced myself and told them like who I was, and then I told them what universal indicator was and put that in the cups with the water, and revealed that one of them had turned a red color and the other had turned a purple color, and had taught them that one was an acid and the other was a base, and what the pH scale was, and how to neutralize those acids and bases.
I'm Dr. Sylvia Pastor, one of the honors co-coordinators. Please continue eating, drinking, enjoy your dessert. We have 2 students who will be giving some presentations for you. And I just want to say thank you again to all the families for coming, all the faculty for coming, and all the students for presenting. We all know that this is really your initiative, students, that you've taken to do these honors projects and be part of this program. So it's really impressive to see all of you here today. Our first speaker is Christen Ragle. And he is presenting a project that was sponsored by Dr. Kelly Williams, one of my fellow chemistry professors, called Radiocarbon Dating and the Chemistry Involved. So I will turn the floor over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. Today I'll be going over a process called radiocarbon dating. Very interesting, and I'll get into the uses and the chemistry, kind of just a generalized version. This is not comprehensive in any way. So a little bit more about me. I graduated with my associate's degree here just last year in wildlife and fisheries, and I'm at Tennessee Tech University as an ecology technician, and I am just now starting a season as a ranger. It's very exciting. And that kind of leads me into my next point. I wanted to take this project on and present it so that I can build my skills in interpretation. If I can adequately describe this science to you guys, I know I did a good job. And I would like to show some appreciation to Dr. Kelly Williams, who inspired me to take on this project. I never thought one time that I would want to do something in chemistry. I am not a math person, but she made me really enjoy it, the way she taught the class. Can everyone give a quick round of applause for Dr. Kelly Williams? So, first I'd like to talk about the historical consensus here. Ever since the dawn of humanity, we kind of guessed the age of the Earth, right? And throughout history, we used religion as our basis for the description of the earth. They didn't have anything else to go off of, so they interpreted Holy Scriptures to say that the earth was around 6,000 to 10,000 years old, with nothing to contradict that. That was until the rise of geological discovery. Scientists started looking at things objectively, looking at places like the Grand Canyon, where we see layers upon layers, different colors too, different chemistry in those layers. And then we had Darwin, who described finches in the Galapagos, and that led to a boost in evolutionary discovery. And then we had Mary Ann Mantle, I think I'm pronouncing her name right. She discovered what we now kind of think of as the first fossils, that belonging to the iguanodon, a very interesting dinosaur at the time. But they didn't know how old it was. But then we go to Willard Libby. He is the one who discovered radiocarbon-14, the process that I will be getting into here in just a second. He won a Nobel Peace Prize for it. Pretty big deal. It's good that he got the recognition he deserves. Science behind the method. I'll first go over Britannica's definition. I tend to trust them as a source because I couldn't have said it better myself. The method of age determination that depends upon the decay to nitrogen of radiocarbon. Carbon-14 is continually formed in nature by the interaction of neutrons with nitrogen-14 in the Earth's atmosphere. Way too complicated for me to understand. So I'll break it down kind of in a comprehensive matter by going over the concept of decay first. And in order to do this, we need to talk about half-life. And in order to do that, we need to talk about what an isotope is. Because we all have heard of carbon, but maybe not most of us have heard of carbon-14. So as you can see up here, the positives are the protons, negatives are the neutrons, and the grays are the neutrons, or the electrons, neutrons. The protons and the number thereof determines what chemical it will be. So carbon has 6, right? If it had 7, it's not carbon anymore. If it had 6, or if it had 5, it's not carbon anymore, right? Electrons determine the negativity, positivity, or neutral charge of the atom. But the neutrons are just sitting there, right? The neutrons aid to the mass. That's all it's really doing. Isotopes are what we find in nature. So usually you would have neutrons that equal protons, right? When we want to look in the textbook, we see carbon having 6 neutrons, 6 protons. In nature, though, that's not the case. So with carbon-14, we would have 6 protons and 8 neutrons. That's why it's called carbon-14. So if that's a pretty simple way of explaining that. Now on the half-life. And the definition I have here is the time it takes for 1/2 of an atomic nuclei to decay. For carbon-14, this would be about 5,730 years. And a basic way of saying this is, let's say we take a cube of ice and place it right there. And this room temperature is probably about what? 72 degrees. It would probably take about 10 minutes for it to melt down to about half of its original size, right? That's how we can think of decay. Carbon eventually breaks down, like everything does. Luckily, we know using different molecular methods how long it takes for a piece of carbon to melt down to half its size, if that makes sense, which is about 5,000 years. So this is how we can look at things. We can think of carbon as having a cap of 60,000 years. That's how long it will live until it's fully broken down, right? So anything above 6,000 years, let's say a T-Rex, we can't date it using radiocarbon. We have to use alternative dating methods. And the main one is called uranium, thorium, lead dating. This is for non-organic samples, so believe it or not, fossils are not bones. They're where bones used to be. Minerals came in and formed what we think of as fossils. It's not actually bone, though. The T-Rex skull we see at the museums, that's not a T-Rex bone. That was where a T-Rex bone was, if that makes sense. So we can use, in this case, uranium dating to find the half-life and determine how old a T-Rex was, right? And so the last ones died out around 66 million years ago due to the meteor that hit the Earth. So now for practicality and limitations. So radiocarbon dating, as I kind of said previously, it's mainly good for samples. Let's say a woolly mammoth. Woolly mammoth, they died about 10,000 years ago, around when the pyramids were being built, actually. We can date those because they're below that 60,000 year mark. We can date them using radiocarbon dating, and it's very accurate most of the time. But then we run into the limitations. On top of the limitation of it only being about 60,000 years old, that cap, there are more we don't think of these as much. And that would be, the example I have here is for animal-based glue. Archaeologists, they use these tiny little plastic containers, right? Well, if any of that glue that is on those labels gets into the sample, if it's animal-based, that means it has organic matter, meaning it has carbon. So then you just ruin the whole sample because of a little contamination issue. That's how precise these things have to be. And we already went over the age of specimen that with, that 60, I really want to hammer in that 60,000 year mark. That's usually what the consensus is. But in order to keep scientific integrity, we want to always put standard deviation on our research. So the bigger the bar is for standard deviation, that means, okay, give or take this many years. And with geologists, that's usually millions. Give or take a few million years, as if that's not a huge gap. That's just how it is. Geology is very dirty. It's a very dirty science. But yeah, this is a way to keep honest with your crowd, right? And with that kind of covers the majority of it. If any of you have any questions, maybe after we wrap up here, please come and see me. I tend to think I know how to answer a few, but this is an ongoing science, and I hope this kind of piques some interest for some of you to go check it out. So that concludes it, though. Thank you very much, and here's my sources.
All right, thank you again. And now I'd like to introduce Christen. She's going to do our second speech. This is going to be a history report under the direction of Casey Cobb. All right.
Hi, she already introduced me. My name is Christen, and my professor, Cobb, is over there accompanying him with his wife. And my parents are over there, and my history report will actually be on my father. And so the idea for this project was that I had to write a 10-page essay about someone in my life, specifically military, but I decided to stay the civilian route and go with my father just because it's really convenient for me, and he has some pretty cool stuff that he's done in his past life. So this is me and my dad. This is our favorite picture just because the snow is pretty cool, but we're actually right outside of Knoxville Salvage, so it's not really that bougie, but it is pretty. Of course, my dad had to come from some people, so this is his parents, Ginger and Joe Chaston. His dad's name is Joe just because there's a 4-generation long of Josephs. So his dad's name is Joseph, my dad's name is Joseph, my brother's name is Joseph, and my great-grandpa's name is Joseph. So it's just a continuous of Josephs in our family. And so this is my mom and dad. They're happily married for over 27 years. Actually, this past weekend was their anniversary. So it is a pretty lengthy, long marriage, and they actually had 4 children from it, which me included. I'm the baby of the family. And the way I specify 4 adult children is because he wanted to call us all teenagers on his deacon speech last Sunday night at church. As you can see here, they're all praying over him and another guy at Mount Pisgah because he is the one of the newest deacons at Mount Pisgah Baptist Church that we go to every week. So a cool thing about him is that he actually got me into running. This is us running the 5K, the Covenant 5K, I think October 2021. And so he's actually waving to a friend that he has just because so many people would stop and talk to us as we were running the race. And so this is, the big picture is the picture of us with our medallions afterwards. But it worked out for me because now I run for the cross-country run state team. It's actually a new team that started last semester in fall. And so now I'm running competitively 5Ks, and I'm also running half marathons now, thanks to my dad for giving that interest of love for running, giving the love of running for me. And he also got me into aviation, which is what I'm going to be pursuing. But this speech isn't about me. I just wanted to throw that out there. So it looks like the PowerPoint is a little frolicky, but he was a volunteer firefighter. He's a Tennessee first responder. He worked as an emergency medical technician, and he was a critical care paramedic and a critical care emergency department paramedic, and he also was a technical paramedic for the deputy, specifically the SWAT team in Anderson County, which I think is the most impressive in my opinion. But he also was critical care paramedic for the Methodist Medical Center, and he was a flight paramedic, which is sparks a lot of interest for a lot of people for the Air Avic Life Team. And he actually worked at Run State for over 10 years. He was an adjunct instructor, so like the CPR classes and the first aid, first responder, EMT classes, stuff like that. And he's actually like a registered nurse, and he's also like a flight nurse. He worked on UT Lifestar, which is what I remember specifically because that's after I was born in '03. And he's also just a nurse manager and clinical nurse educator for Cookeville Regional Covenant Health. I love that hospital because they have a really good food court. So, when I would go to Dad for work, really for the food court. And yeah, he's also the head of Park West Emergency Department. So he's been pretty much everything around under the sun around first responders or anything paramedical. This is a picture of him actually with his team on the Air Avic Life Team. He's the tallest guy. He's the guy in the blue on the right. And so this is like their usual getup. Obviously it was Christmas, unless that lady wouldn't be wearing a Christmas hat. This is him also in the red with the glasses on. He's helping a civilian that just got transported. So this is the UT Lifestar helicopter. This is the one that I would see that I can remember of just because it's been a decade or so ago. And I think that was pretty cool. One time he let me go inside of it and hypothetically went in the air, but I mean, I still consider it like riding in a helicopter. This is actually a picture of him from before I was born because I'm not in the picture. Those are my 3 siblings, and my mom's standing behind us, and Dad's holding them in his hands. But I think the helicopter was there to show all kinds of kids around our community just what the helicopter looks like and how to save lives. This is an up-close picture of him wearing his badge and his medallions, and this is of him on the Life Team wearing his red suit. And this is also his like crew or squad. He's in the front center. So I mean, he was pretty. A lot of people were pretty proud of what he did. I mean, I'm proud of it, obviously. This is what I do like to consider as the SWAT team. I would actually take his little gear, and I remember being in elementary school, and like that was my Halloween costume, was being a SWAT. I didn't carry the gun though, trust me. But since he was SWAT, he did like to take me cool places, like he would cover the range and stuff in Oak Ridge, and he'd always take me for Buffalo Wild Wings. Dry rub wings were my favorite. This is him also in a SWAT little uniform helping looks like a semi and car accident. Like he had to deal with stuff like this all the time, and obviously whenever you work on like Lifestar and stuff, you see like the absolute worst. So, I mean, he's still smiling today, and he doesn't take it. He has to be like you have to be a very caring person to work as a first responder. And so you have to have a big heart for that, and that was just something that most people don't really think of, that they see the bad stuff like that, and you still have to like go to sleep and do it all over again tomorrow. And so here's a more up close picture of like them pulling out people out of the cars and stuff. This is another picture of like them taking a body from the airplane. And so it is a pretty intense career field, so it's not for the faint of heart. This is what it looks like inside of the airplane usually. I don't think my dad's in this picture. I thought he was on the one on the left, but he corrected me that he wasn't. But this is kind of what it looks like on a day-to-day job. And I remember whenever he would be working at Lifestar and stuff, he'd send my mom pictures of like how pretty the sky was that day. Like that was so convenient. You're just in the sky all day, every day. And so this is actually in the front of the picture is a Vanderbilt helicopter, and the one to the far side is the orange one, which is the UT Lifestar one. This is one of the selfies that he liked to take and send my mom and stuff. But yeah, this guy behind him, he's like in the clouds all the time, and I eat that stuff up. This is another picture of the helicopter, and I'll show you a couple more. This is actually like some of the stuff that they had to deal with was that like big fires and stuff. I mean, you have to land and to get those people out of that situation. So I mean, that's just another gruesome picture of what he had to deal with. That was pretty much just a night and day shot of what the helicopter that he rode in looks like. And so yeah, that's pretty much it. It was really just showing you pictures of what my dad did, and I'm kind of biased just because he is my father. So but yeah, that's pretty much all I have to show for you guys today, so thank you.
And now we'll be recognizing our table presenters and our honors diploma and honors associates recipients. So when I call your name, I'll start with the table and dinner presenters. When I call your name, please come up and receive your pin and certificate. So Isabella Babinsky, Nicole Brown, Spencer Currington, Anna Grace Elkins, Anastatia Ellis, Kaylee Hubbard, Sandra Manning, Madison McCameron, Cheyenne McAbee, Takesha Mingy, Sophia Patterson, Sophia Vetter-Ryan, Harrison Wade, Emma Walker, Megan Watson, Christian Ragle, and Christen Chaston. And now we'll recognize our honors diploma and honors associates recipients. So I believe a few of them are here, but if I call your name, please come up and receive your medallion. So for honors diploma, we have Kayla Arsenault, Connor Melton, Emma Simpson, Harrison Wade. And for honors associate, we have Isabella Babinsky, Leah Cobble, Olivia Jones, Sophia Patterson, Ashlyn Smith, Sophia Vetter-Ryan, and Charity Yarger.
All right, so again, thank you everyone for coming. Please take a few more minutes and check out the table displays and then disperse as needed. Matt Waters is still going to come around if you haven't had a chance to talk to him about your poster. He'd like to capture a little bit of that. And again, thank you to all the faculty who support these projects and to all the students. For those of you who are freshmen, I look forward to seeing you back again next year. And for those of you who are graduating sophomores, I look forward to seeing you at graduation coming up in May. And please do wear those medallions, those of you who earned them. So again, thank you so much and have a wonderful evening.